into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
All right, welcome to Pod Damn America. Hey guys, it's Jake. I'm back from tour. I have one very important thing I want to talk to tonight, which is the movie Solo, a Star Wars story. I liked it. All my friends hated it. That's basically the premise of the episode you're about to hear. Without further adu, I'll get right into this. I've got with me Raghav Mehta.
Hey.
Alex Patak.
Do I have your attention yet?
I hate it. Anders Lee.
Anders Lee here.
Jeremy Hammond.
Hi, I'm dressed like Magnum P.I. today.
And special guest from Chapo Trap House, Virgil Texas.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. It's very unusual for me to be in a Brooklyn loft with a bunch of men recording a podcast, but I think I'll manage.
Wow, you nailed that so hard, no one could ever tell that you said it on the recording that we just fucked up. So I appreciate your showmanship. Yeah.
I think was Glenn Greenwald on that one too?
Yeah, somebody kicked over the fucking the podcast recording box and fucked up all leftist podcasts for a year.
It was a mistake to put them all in that one box.
The Tower 7 server. Wait, we lost the Bernie interview?
Yeah. Yeah, we lost the episode of the Bernie Sanders podcast that I guested on where we harassed.
Underrated?
Centralization is dangerous.
Rotten Tomatoes critics are 1% of the...
Yeah, right.
Darth Maul. Yeah. He's an underrated character. All right.
You gotta grab the mic if you're doing a long impression of Bernie Sanders.
The 1% of the empire controls 90% of the coaxium. That is wrong.
I mean, is it wrong, though? That's what Saw Gerrera probably thought, right? The Forrest Whitaker, weird, freckly, one-footed character. He's probably on some Bernie shit. Okay,
That was Forrest Whitaker?
That was Forrest Whitaker. Am I being double racist? I'm pretty sure Forrest Whitaker was in...
Forrest Whitaker is
I was
not in
hoping
Solo.
you were.
He was in Rogue One.
Yeah, he's in Rogue One
Yeah.
for sure.
I thought you were saying the young woman who was...
The young
revealed
woman was played
that's
by
not
Forrest
Okay.
Whitaker. I'm not...
Forrest Whitaker played most of the roles in Solo. They used CGI.
That's why he's so good.
Yeah. Okay.
Real Eddie Murphy sort of situation.
So if you haven't seen Solo, all of the characters are played by Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah. Even Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian.
In various fat suits. No. Okay. So I liked this movie, and I think I might be the only person online that liked it. And the reason I liked it is because I went and saw it in Denver on an off day I had, and I was, arguably on a manic upswing and very full of sodium because I went to a matinee alone and ate a lot of popcorn. But I did really like it, and I want to point out that I hated The Last Jedi. Like, I thought it had third act problems and thematic problems and just, like, all sorts of plot holes and stuff.
Also, it sucked.
Yeah, so it sucked ass. Porgs were cool, and that was pretty much it. Luke Skywalker jacking off that alien, that was pretty cool, too. But for the
when you
most
got a
part,
Porg movie.
honestly, yes.
Porg porn.
At this point, I'd probably rather see a fucking Porg movie than whatever the third act of the Kylo Ren arc is. I'm still going to watch it. I'm pretty sure it's going to suck. But these standalone movies are good. Rogue One was really cool.
Oh, it was a masterpiece.
It's an isolated movie, right?
Counterpoint, it's boring and bad.
You didn't like Rogue One, right?
Shame on you.
What was your fucking
I liked
problem with
it.
Rogue One?
No, I didn't like Rogue One because it's a dour, boring affair. And Star Wars is supposed to be fun and stupid.
It was a
You're
fucking
thinking of
tragedy.
Phantom Thread. You're thinking of the movie Phantom Thread.
The best Star Wars movies are fucking tragedies. Like Empire Strikes Back is the best original series because it ends on a fucking down note.
That's madness.
Did you see the Ewok sort of direct-to-video movies that came out in like the 80s?
Was it also a
They're
tragedy?
really depressing.
No?
They're about like the Ewoks' forest gets burned down, and there's like families
And, like
of
two
Ewoks
kids have to
starving.
save it.
Yeah, that's a really sad. Actually, it was good. I gotta say.
Is it like a Brazilian logging type affair with the Ewoks?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Anders. I've never seen that movie, but I do think that the best Star Wars movies are tragedies, right? So like Rogue One is an uplifting tale, but everyone fucking dies, you know?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Everyone
kind of
sacrifices themselves, which is something you don't really see in these films.
right. You know, Empire Strikes Back ends with the whole overarching story ending on a down note, and then it comes back up, and it's fulfilling in the third movie, right? But this movie, I think, is a perfect Star Wars tragedy because what it is not just a story of this character Han Solo, it's a story of the concept of individualism, which in my opinion is like a bad thing. And so it would have been really shitty if they made a Star Wars movie about how great Han Solo is. Like if it ended up being, oh, he's a hero because he's individualist, because he's a cowboy, because he's a fucking
communism. Han Khan.
He's not, though. He's on fucking Solo, right? So, like, it would, you know, it shows you that it contrasts. Like, Jordan Peterson fucking loves Han Solo, right? Because he's, like, this fucking individual guy who breaks from the collective pack, right? But he's actually a bad character. So this movie shows you a tragic, like, tale of how he starts off as a naive young guy, and he sort of is tempted with joining up and becoming a collectivist, but he ends up getting his heart broken, and that heartbreak makes him a fucking
That's
loner.
not a tragic tale. That he's sad over a woman.
But it's not just a woman; it's like his whole life.
He doesn't have a life. He's a petty criminal.
The thing is, he wanted to start a life, and it never started, and that's the
Here's
tragedy.
how you know that there's no emotional pregnancy of the film is that when what's Woody Harrelson's character's name?
Decker.
Woody
Yeah.
from Cheers.
No, I was going to say Becker from Becker.
Becker.
Because that's another
From
problem
the-
I had with the movie is because I was distracted because I was thinking of the Ted Danson sitcom.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
that's a classic sitcom.
All right,
Yeah.
so Ted Danson's character Bones is very important in the movie.
Okay. Han Solo joins Tobias Beckett's
Right, there you go.
whole crook gang that's going to pull a heist on a train. And Tobias Beckett's girlfriend sacrifices herself so that they can live. And then the multi-armed nebbish alien dies also.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you remember the neurotic alien.
Yeah, the four-armed monkey space Jew.
Yeah.
With the like Edward Howard Cosell voice that didn't quite fit his CGI. Yeah, that was pretty weird. Listen. One thing I will give you guys about this movie is that the acting fucking sucked. And
Oh wait, you didn't feel oddly compelled by the Imperial officer saying, "Oh, so you're alone? We'll call you Han Solo." Fuck off.
So the heist fails, and then the next shot is Beckett observing two Karens, right, for his lover, whom he's known for several years. And Han is responsible for all of these deaths, and all he does is punch him and then goes, yeah, okay, so we got to talk to this other guy now. And that's it. That's it. There's no emotional pregnancy. There's no emotional attachment of any character in this film.
Because you're watching it and you're thinking, wow, what a bunch of rogues.
Right, because
So
This
he
whole
worked for
movie
the
is rogues.
also he worked for the Empire, and that has never been mentioned before.
they're like, okay, but the reason that the reason their bad acting makes sense is because they're emotionally guarded people. So like they're not big emotional people. Like they're hiding their emotions from each other. Like fucking Han Solo and Daenerys, I forgot her name in the movie, Kira. The whole time, like they don't have a good chemistry because they're like isolated loners, like to begin with. And so what they're trying to do is become characters that would be good actors in the movie because they would break and have like emotions and whatever.
So,
You watch this like a meta.
I'm sorry. That's a lot of words to excuse the fact that they're both just bad actors.
But I'm also like watching this. What do you do when you watch a movie? You know, I'm watching it through a lens of like, please make this make sense in my head. Like, I'm projecting all this Jordan Peterson shit
You
onto
sound
it.
like Jordan Peterson talking about witches
But
right
the
now.
thing is, it's a fucking anti-Jordan Peterson movie though, because Jordan
Witches
Peterson,
exist, trust me.
Jordan Peterson wants Han Solo to be this fucking loner cowboy guy, and that to be like the point of the movie is that he's good. But this is actually a good movie because it's anti-Jordan Peterson's whole ideology, because it's like it's a tragedy of a guy becoming an individualist, which is a bad thing.
I could see you interpreting it that way, but as far as everyone who worked on the movie is concerned, it's a movie about how a cowboy was cool and shot people in space. It's definitely pro-individual narrative.
But it's not a tragedy. He doesn't lose anything at the end of it.
He loses like a little bit of himself. You know?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't
doesn't.
lose a whit at the end of it.
No,
He's betrayed, right?
It's very explicitly put forward for you that when he shoots Woody Harrelson at the end, that was the right move. They even went so far as to have Woody dying on the floor say, "Good call, I was gonna kill you."
He loses a man who was a mentor for him for 3 space months, and who had betrayed him already. That's nothing. And a guy who had already lost everything. There's absolutely no emotional attachment of any of these characters in this movie. To Kira, who gives a shit?
She was hot. She had cool tits.
No, it's a good
She
point.
couldn't act at all.
It's a good point because that happens a lot. There's that scene with the Lando's sexy droid or whatever, and they're talking, and Lando is he's pansexual. That's what the writer said.
Yeah, I mean, they said that after the fact.
If
Well,
you
they
fuck
didn't
a
show
vacuum-
it though.
No, they didn't show it. But in that scene where they're she is in the ship with Han, and she's talking about her sexual tension
Yeah,
with
she
Nine's
wants
brown-
to have sex with Han. Yeah,
yeah with
or with Lando. Yeah.
with Lando.
Nine's
and then,
pronouns are 9.
and then she dies, and we're like, am I supposed to fucking care this sex droid just died that I knew for 10
She
minutes?
doesn't die. Her programming gets slotted into the Millennium Falcon. They USB her in, and she's the Millennium Falcon now.
She's dead to me.
Which explains why in the original trilogy, Han refers to the Falcon as a her or she.
Oh, he's not just a pirate. There's actually a woman's soul in the ship, which
So
we
he's
never.
actually woke this entire time.
He's kidnapped a woman and put her in the ship. Does he have sex with the ship once she's a ship?
Yeah.
It's the same thing to him.
Does he do it by fucking it from within the ship, or does he get outside of the ship and go
He
around
go
back?
to the space tailpipe and just hole it out.
You go to the exhaust. Yeah.
I don't know. Is Han a furry? Are we gonna find that out because he's friends with Chewbacca? I don't know.
Oh my
These
god.
things are open for interpretation.
I would argue that this is a good movie because all of the Star Wars movies for at least a decade have just been affairs of lights flashing in front of you while you OD on nonsense. And this movie had a scene where Han Solo yells at Chewbacca in Chewbacca language in a situation where he hasn't eaten in 3 days and wins him over by being like, "Punch this wall!" And that's the canon story now of how they meet.
Yeah, but I mean,
Well, have you ever been to Europe? You can actually push people around if you just know 4 words in their language.
It's never happened. I haven't been to Europe. You copy.
well, Anders has got something to say, much like Chewbacca in the movie.
Chewbacca, Han was because they expected it to be Chewbacca destroying Han Solo, but he's able to recognize Chewbacca as an individual and talk to Chewbacca in a way that the Imperial forces have not been able to because they view Chewbacca just as a simple machine almost.
Right, these stories are metaphors and stuff.
I did think, though, that the anti-hero element was kind of underplayed and underutilized in a way that kind of did lose me a little bit. I feel like if they had actually given Han Solo more morally questionable dilemmas to reconcile, it would have been a more interesting movie. Mm-hmm. But because Lucas is allergic to moral ambiguity, that wasn't a feature of the film. And I think that it suffered with that in mind. I will also say that the acting was not great. I did get the impression that the gentleman who played Han Solo was assigned the first 3 Star Wars movies and instead found a bunch of Jack Nicholson movies. Because a lot of his lines were sort of like, I speak, I'm fluent in Chewbacca. That was a little overdone for me, in a kind of a Christian Slater style that threw me a little bit. I think he could have tried to act more like Harrison Ford, quite frankly. But if you saw the Access Hollywood interview a couple weeks ago, Harrison Ford surprises the cast of Solo while they're promoting the movie, and then they show post-game interviews of them being surprised by Harrison Ford over and over and over again. Very interesting sort of character. Sorry, that's it. That's all I have to say other than the Cheerios thing, which we can get to later.
Plug for the Cheerios thing.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Cheerios later.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a riff where he comes in and he's being Jack Nicholson as a snowman, but the time has passed.
No, let's hear it.
I'm a snowman. Okay.
All right.
Snowman.
Thank you.
That was pretty good. I'll also say this about the acting. Like, Donald Glover is like a pretty fucking cool get for playing Lando Calrissian.
Oh, absolutely. No question.
But he kind of sucked.
Cool.
No, because he had nothing to do.
Yeah, he played a
just had
fucking card game.
So there were these scenes where Lando is sitting in the Falcon dictating his life story, right? And there's another like silly scene where Kira finds his wardrobe and it's all capes. And all of this is trying to say, oh, he's cool. By the way, he's a cool guy, and that's it. That's the only dimension of his character.
Yeah, it's
There's
barely
nothing
alluded
interesting
to.
there whatsoever.
If you watch this movie and you had never seen like Lando in The Empire Strikes Back,
He's a sneakerhead in the
you would
film.
not know even what this guy's supposed to be. Like they vaguely mention, oh, he's a sportsman or whatever, but they could have fleshed that out a lot harder. I
Yeah,
also
we're
think,
supposed to think he's cooler because he cheats at cards too.
well, I think that's in keeping with the fucking theme of the movie, which is this like
Yeah.
anti-hero roguishness.
grifters.
So
thing.
they wrote his role very poorly, and they also, I assume the directors anticipated, Donald Glover, he'll just like make it cool, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, and he clearly didn't. I mean, I think like when I watched it, I noticed I was like, did they shoot this movie in order? Because it seemed like he became Lando
they
by
didn't.
the end of the fucking movie. Like his initial, I mean, that maybe just because he was playing a very uncompelling version of Lando, and I eventually just got on board with it. But like, he's kind of affecting the '70s Lando accent or whatever, like in the movie, but like pretty badly and not really adding much to it. Or
Well, the
whatever.
thing is, we don't really know because 75% of the film that we see in the final cut is by Ron Howard, and the other 25% is from the first director. What's his name?
Who got booted?
I forget his name. Do you guys know? All right.
No.
There is one very specific.
That explains why Boba Fett smashes that jukebox and then music starts playing.
That's right. That was a callback to that. Donald Glover is doing a Lando impression for most of the time he's on screen until one part at the end of the movie where they just are like, hey, Derek comedy this up the most you possibly can, where he's hanging out with Han Solo and he's like, I hate you. We're at a spelling bee.
Yeah, that was the best Lando scene in the movie.
Yeah, but that's like maximum Donald Glover, though.
How about this? How about this? We no, please. Oh, okay. We when we meet Lando, he's in a space alien bar where it's all the cantina scene from A New Hope played over and over again. And he's in the back room playing space cards, and it's not regular cards. and all the dialogue from that, and this sequence goes on for like 5 minutes, and all the dialogue is, I see you have a straight gleep-glop. Well, I've got a royal gagugu.
Oh, yeah.
That beats yours.
So Dan Harmon wrote it, like Rick and Morty style. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make him seem like a cool guy.
This is what I want to see. Is a follow-up, which is a season of Atlanta as Lando. He does the entire season like going and having little space adventures and also reconciling with ideas about identity and shit, and then he does like a companion album.
Oh, yeah.
as Lando.
Lando Robbins season would be great if he was just like robbing drug dealers in Atlanta.
Yeah, or like a music video called like "This Is Tatooine" or something, and it's all about the Jawas struggle. That'd be cool.
Speaking of cool guys with cool stuff, did you guys know that Han Solo has dice?
All right, so that bothered me because that's a fucking reference to The Last Jedi whole thing where there's this huge plot hole in The Last Jedi where like he kind of has dice and then like someone's a hologram and they carry the dice and the dice are a hologram but then they're not. Like it doesn't make any sense by the end of the fucking movie.
They're just doubling down on this weird dice thing that nobody would have even cared about.
But if you cannot think about The Last Jedi when you watch this movie and just understand it as like a symbol of like, hey, all right, let me tell you.
How could you not, though, when they make such a note of pointing out the dice all the time?
All right, you know how I watched this movie? As soon as I fucking like saw the text come down and like got into it, I went, you know what this is? This is a fucking 1980s like Kurt Russell movie. It's like Big Trouble in Little China. So like there's campiness and shit that's not gonna make sense, and it's gonna be fun like first and then plot second or whatever. And if you watch it that way, you don't get all nerded out and angry about like the dice because you don't think about the dice as a thing relating to like the rest of the canon. You think about it as a like quirky little like nod within the movie itself about like this roguish character, you know.
So before I saw the film, all the reviews, everything people were tweeting about was it's a serviceable heist film. That was it.
Yeah, but that just feels like a way of reducing it to like, what's the nicest thing I could, you know, you meet somebody and they're like really ugly and you're like, they have a really good sense of humor.
Well,
like
that's the thing. Ultimately, yeah, that's pretty much what it was. And if it had not been any part of the Star Wars canon, if you would change Han Solo to Steve Mars or whatever, it would have been... It would have been a decent and utterly forgettable film.
It would be funny if his name was Han Polly because he showed up with like 10 people and he was like, we're all fucking, and I'm not an individual.
Stick together, yeah.
Instead, they have this very long sequence at the end of it. After what you perceive to be the third act, which should have been the Kessel Run, right? There's the post-third act, which is now mandatory for all of these blockbuster films. To have a new fucking nearly endless fucking 30-minute segment where there's the complication with the Marauders and Kira, goes on the flip screen and she's bad this whole time, and she talks to Darth Maul.
But she
and
wasn't
that's a Star
bad
Wars
the whole
thing.
time. That's the fucking most important part of the movie.
How was she not bad the whole time?
Because she fucking told him like, I wanted to go with you. She said that like every time I thought about going with you, it made me smile, and it was the only
She
time
couldn't.
in the
She
movie
got
smiled,
nabbed
right?
by the space TSA.
Right, but that was like we're contrasting like circumstance with like your actual inner drive, and that's supposed to be like the theme of this movie is like, well, which one wins out in the end? And it's really sad that circumstance wins out. Like she tells him, you know what? Really, I want to go with you. She even goes as far as to say she's going to go with him, and then takes off in a spaceship. And once he sees her taking off, he like fucking becomes Han Solo because that was the last shred of humanity he had. You know, the last shred he had was this hope that he could have built a life with her, and that's what makes him a dickhead, because he is a dickhead. Han Solo's a bad character, but this is how he got there. You know?
Okay, well, so here's the fundamental problem with the film. The original trilogy is in part the story of Han Solo's redemption, right? He is an asshole, he's murderous, and he's just looking out for himself. But by the end of A New Hope, he realizes, there's some things that are more important than just being a solo smuggler, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hence the name Han Solo. I mean, that's...
As we learned in the movie.
That's originally like why that name exists. It shows that he's looking out for number one, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and risks his life in order to, ensure that the operation is successful in order to save Luke. That already is a redemption story. So why would you make this film, the prequel film of him 20 years earlier, also a fucking redemption story where he does the right thing at the end? No, he should just be bad the entire fucking time.
But I don't think this story was a redemption story. I think it was a fucking...
What do you mean he does the right thing at the end,
It
right?
was a Shakespearean tragedy. Like
No, it's not. Stop saying that. You don't know what that means.
It was it was mostly circumstance.
It's like Shakespeare.
It wasn't a lot to do with his individual free will. like he had a sliver of free will that like sort of like peeked at you throughout the movie, but the fucking defining plot points and the things that shaped his character were external. And that's why like I liked the movie, because I thought it looked at like, oh, fucking guy escaping from like this weird, you know, crime like poverty situation and then wanting to overcome it, but then realizing like, yeah, that shit's always gonna catch up with you if you're not born already in that fucking Sky Casino or whatever.
But he makes a choice at the end of it to do the good thing, which is to supply the space petroleum to jumpstart the rebellion. And so he has already done a good thing and been essentially one of the progenitors of the rebellion.
Yeah.
They make a big point of that too, where they're like, by the way, later we're the rebellion.
Why? Why is that even necessary? If you had cut the last 30 minutes of this film, I would say it's a pretty good film.
Much like King Lear, the story can only be improved by speaking Wookiee for over 10 minutes running time of a major motion picture. Every time a Wookiee talks in, there's no more story happening. It's just animal sounds into a space camera.
As George Lucas says, the play's the thing.
Well, I think that it didn't choose the two Shakespeare tropes. Either you go Macbeth, everyone's dead, or you go Hamlet, and a couple of people are dead.
It's pronounced Hamilton.
Hamilton. Maybe I'm mixing these up, but one of these, everyone's, a couple of people are dead, everybody's jaded. No, it's Shakespeare or Chekhov. Chekhov, everyone's jaded, Shakespeare, everyone's dead. And he didn't choose either. He chose, like, a couple of people are dead, but we have rosiness, right? There's no room for a sort of little bit of darkness within the rose.
Well, that's because they were making a movie about an anti-hero, which is the thing in between things, right? So they had to, like, dip in between genres to make it. I thought it was creative.
Chekhov has that rule where if you have dice in the first movie and no one likes it, you have to put dice in more of the movies.
Same goes for Wookiee talk, yeah.
Okay,
to be or not to...
Actually, Dice was his first role was in a Chekhov play. Andrew
Yes.
Andrew
Missed opportunity.
Dice.
Where's Dice?
Dice Man. Yeah. A Star Wars story. That's the next movie that's coming out. It's the origin story about how Andrew Dice Clay became a thing.
God, I wish.
Hickory dickory dock, I'm running away from a Jawa. And so forth.
can I tell you a story of how I saw the film?
Absolutely.
All right, so I saw it with Will and Matt at Alamo Draft House,
I've heard of this.
which is it's the Nazi movie theater where they play these videos for the they play these videos for the film, telling you to snitch on your fellow moviegoers if they make a disruptive activity. The only reason I went is because the good theaters where you can like drink booze at were not
Fun time.
Alamo Draft House with its lives of others attitude is too much bullshit. Here's what I would like: a movie theater where there's a concession stand where you just buy booze and that's it.
That'd
There's
actually
no
be
waiters
way
or any
cooler.
bullshit like that. I just go get the drinks and I come back. That's it.
I like the chairs there. They have large chairs.
They are good for a large man such as yourself.
Listen,
Thank
we can.
Okay, so I saw the movie with Matt and Will, and Matt was sitting next to me. And when they reveal that why Han's name is Solo, Matt leans in and says rather very loudly, in my opinion, that's why he's called Han Solo. And then later on, when Lando takes him to the Millennium Falcon, he says, "That's how we got the Millennium Falcon." And he just keeps saying that over and over again. And I said, we're going to get kicked out.
Also, when every character explains their function in the story.
All right, listen.
And it was not as much of a nostalgia bullshit fest as the first two films of the new trilogy. But, I mean, it doesn't hold a candle to Rogue One. And that's a fact. Rogue One was a fucking brilliant movie.
I like Rogue One.
Jeremy,
I don't
what do you
like
have
The
to
Force
say
Awakens.
about that?
The most that Rogue One did that tied it to the rest of the series, other than the basic plot of it, was the appearance of Darth Vader, which in my mind was very restrained and very
Well, also the basic plot point that what they were doing the entire time was fucking making that hologram.
They're bringing to life like one small, moment, one event that is suggested by the entire series. Essentially, just an event that was suggested by the opening crawl of A New Hope, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't a nostalgia jack-off film.
Well, neither was this.
You got to see at the end of it, Vader beat the shit out of people, which was incredibly fun and cool. The only kind of weird part was, of course, the Leia, the CGI.
Yeah.
Gave us hope.
I'd argue that Solo, a Star Wars movie, was less of a nostalgia jack-off fest than Rogue One was.
It had Darth Maul in it.
It had Darth Maul in it.
It was at the
The
very
fucking
end.
Millennium
You know what?
Falcon in it.
Nobody is nostalgic for Darth Maul. Nobody is looking back.
I'm a little nostalgic. He had a double lightsaber.
He had
double.
two.
Yes, he had a cool lightsaber, but there's nothing else about him that people are like lining up at the theaters for.
It came
Whereas
out both sides.
Rogue One is like
He's a meme.
Rogue One is laden with these appearances of like ATSTs and Star Destroyers and these random things that they throw in
That's
there. because
another
they're like,
reason
there's
that-
no
Put it this
reason
way,
for them
Rogue
to be
One.
there.
Rogue One told 3 compelling stories. Solo told 0.
I am not arguing that Solo is a good movie. I'm arguing that Rogue One is a bad movie. Like, do
What
you
about the
remember
compelling story of
anybody's
Lando
name for Rogue
Calrissian
One?
playing a card
Orson,
game
wait,
that no
you
one
didn't like
understands?
Orson Krennic? Why are you laughing at that? Because he's a great character.
You are. I will say they're asking us with Rogue One to keep track of a lot of British people. And I can only keep like 5 up their tops.
Oh,
So
I
just,
get it. I get it now. There's too many non-white people in Rogue One. Too many Asians for you. I get it. Yeah,
code
that's
word.
fine.
That made
okay.
that just side note, the Asian people in Rogue One. So I got addicted to a Star Wars video game on my cell phone last year, and it made a lot of fucking white power people that played that video game really angry when they introduced like Baze and the other guy. It blew their fucking
Imagine how
cheering
mad
and
they
stuff.
were when the Marauders were feminist warriors.
Well, they haven't been incorporated into the game yet, but we'll understand in about 6 months when those people get wind of this through the video game and not the movies they're watching.
It's also very important for context that the listener understand that Jeremy does not like any movie, I think, that has ever come out.
That's true.
Okay. Yeah, do you like any of the Star Wars movies? I mean, what's your fucking deal?
You like still pictures?
My favorite Star Wars movie is A New Hope, and I like
the original movie.
Yeah, I like A
You
New Hope.
Killjoy.
I think that it should have ended. I don't think they needed Empire Strikes
What?
Back or
You think the
Return of the
movie
Jedi.
should have been a standalone movie?
I think it's a
But it
great
was called
standalone film.
Episode 4 when it came out.
Only after
No,
they
it wasn't.
decided
Oh,
to
really?
do extras. Yeah,
Fuck.
I think it was a great
Well,
standalone
I guess
film.
you're
I don't think it
right.
needed anything
Oh.
else.
Owned much product.
Oh, sorry, Trigger.
But Empire Strikes Back was a brilliant film and a gorgeous film. Watch it again and look at the set design in that
I've
film.
seen it
It's
a
amazing.
million times. I promise you, I've seen it so many fucking
Okay.
times.
But watch it again and really pay attention to it.
Blastered much, rebels? That doesn't even make sense.
Empire fans, BTFO.
All right. So I like where you're coming from, which is that you hate all of this. That makes sense to me. All right. Well, I mean, I guess closing statements.
Can we get the cereal story in?
What's the serial
Gotta
story,
hear more about
Anders?
the
Lay it
cereal
on us.
story.
2
When
weeks
will
ago,
they get to the cereal story?
It's just about Serial, the podcast.
Yeah.
Look, Adnan didn't do it.
this would be if the producers of Serial made like a customer service complaint podcast. This would be that. CVS. I'm there 2 weeks ago. And
This is the most riveting part of the story so far.
Where are we? How do we feel?
off the halls of Jay, we're talking one cashier, fucking 17-person line. I'm walking around to get a handy mitten for my oven, and I see
Wait,
Solo
what's a handy mitten?
for when you're taking buns out of the oven.
What's it? What that doesn't
Oven
answer the
mitt.
question.
An oven mitt.
Oven mitt.
An oven
Oh.
mitt.
Handy mitten.
We can't stop here.
Are you from Pittsburgh or something?
Where are you from? Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota.
All right. I see a box of cereal says.
I'm going for
free-
some gum bands. That's what they call rubber bands in Pittsburgh.
We've introduced
they
a
really?
titular
I
character.
learned that
Yins
on-
call it that? The yins?
Yeah, I learned yins and gum bands. when I
That
was
sounds
on
like a
tour.
slur. I'm sorry. But
It's
yins,
fucked up.
Okay.
And also, they say I gotta red up the room.
Like read the room?
They speak in like
Get
weird...
to the cereal.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Free solo ticket. Catches my eye. Nice kind of hot blue sexy font. And I look over at box of Honey Nut Cheerios, gluten-free, American Heart Association approved. You get 3 boxes. Comes with 1 free solo ticket.
No.
Boom. And these are Honey Nut, so it's kind of a good flavor. I haven't had. Speaking of nostalgia,
how many
that's what they're.
Just in case we're not seeing the value of this tale.
Wait,
These
no.
are honey nuts.
I'm sorry. How much per box is it though? The movie ticket could be like $8.
Right. This we're talking like $3.65 a box.
Oh wow,
So
that's a good deal.
it's a great
Good
deal. I bring them home. Next day, look a little closer. There is the world's smallest asterisk next to free,
No.
and it says up to $8 value. So you buy 3 of these boxes. Okay, you go to computer and you type in, I believe it's Fandango related, and you have to enter 3 separate codes, and you maybe get an $8 discount on 1 ticket. I'm thinking, at this point, I'm going to take it, all right? And so I punch them in, and all of the eligible Fandango theaters are in Long Island, New Jersey, Rhode Island. So nothing...
Oh, God.
This should have been the whole episode. I am
This should have
furious.
been in the movie.
Also, very amusing that they offered 1 free ticket.
A solo,
Or
well, what are they going to
to-
give? 3 tickets to Solo?
Yeah, to a fucking movie called Solo.
Yeah. So anyway, I was a little miffed at that, and it caused me to have too hot of a take on Solo because I was stewing.
Well, it sounds
In
like the real
serious-
Star Wars enemy is General Mills.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
Can I get some air horns after that?
Yeah. I'll plug them in post.
Cereal
General
theme song kicks in
Mills.
right now. I'm Sarah Koenig. And that's what you call a hot riff.
Now, do you find yourself sending a lot of emails?
Oh, yeah. It's a MailChimp. All right. Well, Virgil, thank you for joining us to shit talk this movie.
Thanks. Hey, can I plug the book?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
please
buy
do.
the book. The Chapo book is called The Chapo Guide to Revolution, a manifesto against logic, facts, and reason. It will be out at retailers August 21st. Oh, man, I'm fucking this up real bad.
Hey, man.
Look,
That's the
look.
whole point of the episode.
I tell you what's stupid. Just go online and buy the fucking book. Just
Buy the
buy the book. Thank you. Buy the book.
Buy the book.
We don't get any money from you buying the book, so it's not even a fucking selfish thing. It's
What's
just
the money going to? So people
it
know.
goes to our publisher.
Oh, I thought you were going to
General
say, like,
Mills.
It goes to our publisher. It goes to George Lucas, actually, who owns Simon and Schuster.
I fucking
no,
knew
we
it the whole time.
all the pre-sales go contribute towards getting on the New York Times bestseller list, which we want to be on top of, so that we can lord that over everyone that we harass in the book. And I promise you, we harass a lot of people in the book. If you support harassment online, buy this book.
Amazing. All right. Jeremy, got anything to plug?
Yeah, check out my podcast with Alex. It's called Ballin' Out Super.
Super.
Super. Jake's been on it. Raga's been on it.
We're
Will
starting
Medeker's been on
Patreon.
it.
This is a big week.
We are.
Cool.
And very other obvious plug, 4 of us are producing a show this weekend at Mayday Space. If you live in Brooklyn, at 7 p.m. is the paid protest show. Okay, Jake's on the show. It's going to be a fun time. It's a comedy show for 2 hours, and then we're doing dance parties.
Dance party.
We're,
We got
we're
Joe
raising money
Rumroll,
for
Lindsay
DSA
Bowling.
medics. Please come out.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I'm hot back from the tour, so I'm fucking
Yeah.
stoked. I got good material.
Jake's going to be on it. We got Lindsay Bowling, Joe Rumroll, a lot of funny people. I will
Joe Roman
be
is very, very funny.
super
guy.
funny dude, magical. I will be if you are in Philadelphia, I will be doing my one-man show about autism on June 22nd, June 23rd at Quigs. It's going to be at 9 p.m. Find it on Facebook. Would love to see you.
How do you
Are
spell
you
Queens?
trying to spread it or cure it?
I'm trying everyone to acknowledge that they have it.
Universal autism
Yes,
now.
that is
On demand.
right. Spreading it.
Make me autistic.
Fucking.
It was called Dummy, by the way. Dummy, if you
Make
want.
America autistic again. But,
Innately
boom.
autistic.
Yeah, fucking go to Paid Protest on Saturday. Come to my weekly show in Park Slope at Cherry Tree Bar, 8 p.m. It's called Airplane Mode, and follow me on Twitter, ACLU Official. Thanks.
Cool. All right, that's up. It was a good movie. Now I'm going to turn it off now.
Shut it down.